This is the Steam Deck, a handheld gaming PC that lets you play from Steam's massive library of PC games anywhere you want. Inside of the box, you get this included carrying case, which is actually pretty nice, and then inside of it, of course, you have the console itself. Now, at first glance, this thing looks kind of like a Nintendo Switch, except it's way wider and just has a lot more going on. So up front and center, we have a 7-inch touchscreen. This is an IPS panel with a 1280 by 800 resolution, which actually gives it a 16 by 10 aspect ratio instead of 16 by 9. So technically, it's a bigger screen than the one on the Switch. In terms of controls, you have your traditional stuff like the thumbsticks, the ABXY buttons, and the shoulder triggers. But on the Steam Deck, you have even more inputs. So there's a trackpad on each side that's useful for when you want to navigate PC games like you would with a mouse. And then on the back, there's 4 of these grip buttons where you can actually map them to different in-game actions. Back to the front, we have dual firing front-facing speakers, a Steam and quick settings button, and then up top, you have your volume buttons, a headphone jack, the exhaust for the fan, which has the intake on the back, a USB-C port that can output to a TV in addition to charging, and a power button. And then at the bottom, there's nothing there but a micro SD slot, which can expand the storage by up to 2 terabytes, which considering how big PC games are, you're gonna need it. Now, in terms of the general feel in the hand, I actually like the way the Steam Deck feels compared to the Switch. The Switch is kind of flat when you use it in handheld mode, whereas with the Steam Deck, the grips fit nicely into your hand, making it feel more like an Xbox controller. But the big story with the Steam Deck is the power, because unlike the Nintendo Switch, the Steam Deck is using a much more powerful custom AMD APU, meaning not only will it offer better graphics and performance, but it'll likely also affect the amount of AAA games that are supported. For example, the Steam Deck lets you play games like GTA 5, Red Dead Redemption, Forza Horizon 5, and God of War. There's already over 1,800 Steam Deck verified games on the Steam store, with more being added, and there are a bunch of other titles that aren't quite verified but are still marked as playable, meaning these games require the use of a virtual keyboard or a touchscreen or may have text that's a little bit hard to read, but either way, it's an awesome game library, especially if you're already a PC gamer that's invested into it. Okay, so how do the games themselves perform? Well, just like on a PC, it depends on the settings that you run them at. If you go with the recommended settings, I've actually been getting excellent performance. I haven't really noticed a drop in performance even in my longer gaming sessions, and while the Steam Deck does get hot with the fans kicking on when you're pushing it, the area where it gets hot is far enough from where you hold it where it's never an issue. In fact, the main complaint I have with the Steam Deck is in some games, especially in shooter games, you have to hold the screen really close to be able to see everything, which after a while can get uncomfortable since you have to hold it up with your hands or you have to crank your neck if you're resting your hands down. Whereas with the Switch, you do have that option to run it in table mode with the kickstand. But of course, you can always connect it to a TV. And because the Steam Deck is technically a full-on PC, you can actually connect a keyboard and mouse to it and use it as a desktop. Not just for gaming, but for a full desktop experience using Linux. It's pretty cool. Of course, the main reason anybody would get the Steam Deck is to be able to play games on the go. And for that purpose, I really like it. The controls are great. The 400 nit screen is plenty bright. The battery lasts up to 7 to 8 hours according to Valve, depending on the game that you play. And when it doesn't last that long, there is a 45 watt fast charger included in the box, so that way you can top it off quickly. The Steam Deck starts at $399 for the 64 gigabyte model, with it going up to $650 if you want that top of the line 512 gigabyte option. This is the Steam Deck, a handheld. So Samsung does. This is one of the coolest MagSafe battery packs I've ever seen, and the reason